Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John.
Good morning. I've only got 30 minutes to discuss a very wide subject of how to prepare for life after campus. That's what I'm trying to deal with. For about 30 years, I was a manager with Shell, right from a junior manager, and I retired when I was in the top management leadership team. And we spent a lot of time interviewing people, including KU students. And I thought I want to stand from the industry angle to tell you what is industry looking for when you apply for a job. Would you be interested? That's what my job is. Since I've not been a lecturer to tell you about the student angle, I left campus in the mid-70s, so that may not be my expertise, but over time I have spoken in, especially the Christian Union here has been inviting me, so I've spoken in the chapel quite a lot of times. The first time I was invited in Kenyatta University to speak to the student in the third service was 1978. And so I just noted, I've just made 40 years of coming to KU. But for now, we just want to concentrate on what does it mean? How do you prepare for going into industry? And what are they looking for in the industry? I want to start by mentioning a number of things that would help you to be better off. Number one, I want to say that if you want to understand the prerequisites of the type of worker that is going to operate right up to the CEO level, the first thing is a person who accepts responsibility. If you are the type of a person who is always having an excuse for why you didn't do what you are supposed to do, chances are you will never make it in life because excuses are many and plenty. Unfortunately, no employer will promote you for excuses. You cannot fail to deliver. And because you have a good excuse, you do not, he just tells you to go on. It's a critical thing to take that. I don't have enough time to develop it as a topic on its own because that's a full topic. Accepting responsibility. Rejecting the idea of using people as excuses. Some of you is, I come from the village. Now, that's none of the employer's business. Whether you come from the village or the town. Oh, my family, my father threw away my father. That's irrelevant. We do not quite need to know that your father left your mother. It is irrelevant. May I make it absolutely clear? You are past. And all of us have a past, isn't it? Your past does not determine your future. It's a critical need to understand, irrespective of what a bad past you have. Your future is an open slate, and you can go to it, irrespective of your past. But only if you learn how to take responsibility, not to have excuses. When you do wrong, you accept, I fluked, I did wrong. You know, when you don't accept responsibility, you can improve. Because after all, the lecturer is to blame. After all, my mother is to blame. After all, the employer is to blame. Once you don't accept the blame, how can you work at it? I do not think you have a bigger problem than when you have a young lady who is always looking for scapegoats. And the scapegoats are available. But it will prevent you from realizing your potential. So let me repeat, and I've said it in one of my books, your past does not determine your future. You know, the other day I was doing some training in Chad, for the cabinet of Chad. And as I sat next to the Prime Minister, it just crossed my mind. If this guy knew the village I come from, in Nyandarua, he would never agree to listen to me. You need to understand clearly, it is good my CV doesn't talk about my village. It is irrelevant. Am I communicating? So I can actually communicate to him. But if he was to tie me by what I was in history, it will not help me. If you came to my school, I first went to school in 1958. If you came to my school, in my primary school, and asked me, like many people now these days like asking, what would you like to become? Would you like to know what I would have said? I wanted to be a tractor driver. You know, in my village, the most technical person was a tractor. And as a small boy, I was born 52, so I wasn't by 58, I wasn't that old. I was only 5 years. I wanted to be like that guy, the technical person who is a tractor driver. My friends, if that's what I said, I wouldn't be who I am today. That's why I find it as child abuse to ask a 35 child what they want to become. It is literally child abuse. If you don't give somebody data, how do you ask them to draw conclusions? It's not academic. That's intellectual cheating. You must give somebody information if you want them to choose. So it is at this age, when you have information, you must choose. But my point is still one. You need to accept that irrespective of your past, future is totally open. Let me tell you one of the things that was when I worked for Shell. Shell then was the largest oil company in Kenya. It's actually the largest oil company in the world, but even in Kenya it was the largest oil company. And one of the things I learned, which is the Vice Chancellor has just mentioned, is the fact that the degree you get and the quality of degree you get helps you to enter into the job market. Doesn't determine what happens. And I still remember how sometimes, because I was involved in the interviewing this guy, when I'm giving promotion, I realized I'm promoting a guy who had a pass to become the supervisor of the guy that had first-class honors. And even as a parent, I feel a pity. But you see, the Shell system is a system. It's not what I like. There has to be performance, and there are performance appraisals. And the guy with first-class honors is lower in his appraisal for the last 2 years. How do I give him a promotion when the past guy has been beating him hands down? Why? How you perform at work is related to your performance in university, but by very little. There are other things required beyond getting the degree. And I think that's what this program is about. And that's why you hear me emphasizing the fact that you need to understand your past does not in any way determine your future. The second thing I wanted to mention, which is very, very important if you want to do well, is the fact that for that to happen, you must be a proactive person. There are 4 kinds of people in life. 4 kinds of people in life. Number 1 are people who do not learn from experience. I know it sounds very odd, but they are there. The other day, talking to parents about how to handle teenagers, you ask them the question. Ask them, were you beaten by your father? All of them parents, yes, hey! It's not even the way I beat. We were thoroughly worked on. Second question. Did you benefit out of it? All the parents answered, oh no. Now, that question, do you beat your children? Oh yes. Now, what do you understand? They know very well it never helped them. And they are repeating it. Have they learned from experience? No, it sounds very odd. Very few of us are likely to admit. We simply repeat the mistakes of our parents. We simply repeat the mistakes of people who have failed. We do not learn from experience. If you are in that category, you are likely to do well when you go out of the university. The second class of people are called the reactionary people. Normally when we are called reactionary, it sounds negative, especially in intellectual circles. He is a reactionary. But my friend, reactionary people are very good. They are not like the first category. Reactionary people are people who learn from experience. That's why they are called reactionary, because they react to experience. That means if you fail in something, you learn from it. And you do something, so you become better. You learn from experience. That's a very good person. I want to ask you, since you are first year, are you doing better in 4th year because you learn from the way you study so that that you are not like other people. There are people who wake up at 4 a.m. to study, and they are able by 8 o'clock, they'll go to class and they are fresh. But some of us are treated different. If you wake up at 4, you'll be sleeping in class throughout the day. But because somebody somewhere said people should wake up early, if you continue waking early, you'll fail your 4th year. Am I right? You need to learn that there are people who can wake up early and some others who can work late. Which you are is not you who decides. It is part of your body system. Am I communicating? So you start learning. So even if you see people doing something, there are also people who learn to learn in a noisy place. Others like to learn in a quiet place. You don't go doing what others are doing. You learn from experience. If you are that kind of a person and you get a job, there is a great possibility that you are going to be improving. The only trouble with this second category is they pay a high price. To learn from experience is very, very expensive. So I'm introducing the third category. The third category are people who are proactive. What is to be proactive? A proactive person is a person who never goes into any project until they have thoroughly analyzed it before they go. That means they can tell the problems of the project before they enter into it. That means, for example, you see a nice girl, she is figure 8, she looks marriage material. You don't approach her. If you are proactive, you check beyond that. Because you see, you are not marrying the body, you are marrying the person who is resident in the body. And that's not very easy to see. Am I communicating? A proactive person will do an analysis. What do I want with this girl? I want to marry her. So I'll find out what's the vision of the girl. What does she want? And that's when you start realizing her future aspirations are so contradictory from yours, you can't stay together. She doesn't stop being figure 8, but you know that's not your type. Am I communicating? Understanding. That's one of the problems in Africa. One of our weaknesses, and we have many strengths as Africans, one of our greatest weaknesses is we move forward looking backwards. No wonder you keep riding. That's what our politicians are doing. Moving forward looking backwards. A proactive person will analyze the future. 3 questions the person will ask as they go into anything, whether it's a job or a project. The first one they ask is, what do I expect out of this project? In other words, what is the future? What are the benefits I expect to get out of the project? And you analyze it. Number 2, you ask, what is the opportunity cost? Because anytime you take this, it will be at the expense of something else. So you need to ask yourself, what is the cost? One of the questions Africans don't like asking is, what can go wrong? Now, it's a very important question, but our culture does not prepare us for that. Why? As I grew up, they kept repeating, you can't imagine evil because then evil will come. So if I see my friend here, the way he is sitting, he is going to fall, I don't tell him he is likely to fall, because if he later falls, I'll be sued by the parents. There must be a witch. Now, so because you don't want to be called a witch, you don't talk about what can go wrong. We say in my vernacular, in other words, you are not allowed to have clothes for a baby when it's still in the womb. And our culture believes if you dare, the baby will die in the womb. So you have 9 months of preparation, but you are not allowed to prepare. Once the baby is born, you start running around. Now you need to understand, you think it's a joke, but that's the way we run our lives. You want somebody's innate is when they are starting to deal with the matter. And you think you do it at home. That's the way you run your life. So you keep wondering why others are being promoted and you are not. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't think ahead. A story is given, I'm sure you're likely to have heard it, of this person who complained that his friend did not get as good a degree as him when you were left, and yet they seem to be favoring him. There must be tribalism, there must be ethnocentricity. How come so and so? The boss decided to just help him and said, young man, I want to send you. Go to the market and find out whether they have apples. The boy took the boss had sent him, he decided to go. When he went, he found there were no apples and came back and told the boss there were no apples. He said, please call so and so. Another person, the guy who gets quick promotions, was asked to come. When he came to the place, in the hearing of the first guy, he was given exactly the same instructions. Go and find out where there are apples in the market. We are going to have a function, and I want to find out. That guy went to the market. Of course, he has no idea what the other one had found there are no apples. But because he's a proactive guy, he has really asked the question, why would they be asking for apples? It's because they want vitamins, isn't it? Are apples the only fruit? No, the other fruits. So he started asking, oh, you have no apples. What else like apples do you have? And he had a piece of paper. So he was able to write down all that was available. He was able to write down the prices and the total cost. He came back. The other guy was called to listen. He had, although there are no apples, the following is also available. And it can cost us this much. And the supplier said he can deliver. Everything done. What is called completed staff work. He asked the other boy, if you are me, between the two of you, who do you promote? It's very important to understand when you do not have the culture of proactiveness. You just deal with the matter the way it is. My suggestion to you is that you have to work on yourself. And that is not taught in the classroom. You will get BSc engineering, but you have the same problem, where you just deal with the matter in front of you. You do not ask the issues around the matter you are dealing with. What can go wrong? Let me tell you three benefits of this proactive culture, thinking ahead. Number one, if you have thought what can go wrong, it means if the thing finally goes wrong, you are not in shock. You know, a lot of people are ending up depressed, traumatized by things they would have known would happen. My first job when I left university, I did a business degree. My first job in the university was to work for a parasito bank. And I was in shock because I was in the final account where we were releasing collaterals to people who finished loans. We remember they had taken the loan in the 60s. I'm now working in the bank in the 70s. What was really disturbing me was that somebody borrowed 300,000 shillings. Now what is required is millions. He is unable to pay, so the bank is selling the plots. So I decided as a young man to find out what happened. And everybody I talked to had very, very good reasons why they were not able to pay. And it occurred to me that their problem was because they had not thought in advance. From then onwards, my wife and I have taken many loans. I never take a loan because I was a young man, I was not even married. I decided I'll still take loans, but never take a loan until I have assumed I'll be unable to pay, experience theoretically what it means to be unable to pay. Once I can cope with that, now I can take the loan. You know, by the grace of God, that was 40 years ago, I have never been unable to pay a loan. But even if I became unable to pay, I am already ready for it. Am I communicating? So the trouble with a lot of us, because we are not proactive, we never look at what is called the worst case scenario. Because in our mind, it's evil. Positive thinking. That's something a lot of motivational people are doing. Positive thinking. Positive thinking means foolishness. Because it means assuming nothing can go wrong. But the truth is, I'm only 65, but have seen enough to convince me things can go wrong. So the first thing is, people who are proactive never get shocked. Because they knew, they did not want it to happen, but they knew it could happen. Benefit number two, because they know it can go wrong, they prepared a program to stop it from going wrong. Like when you sit on a chair and you know it could fall, you sit in a way to stop yourself falling, isn't it? Or to ensure if you fall, you don't break. Now, what you do when you realize things can go wrong can prevent it from going wrong. There's the superstition we Africans have, that when you think about the baby in the womb, it will die. It's what will stop you from feeding the mouth of the baby properly, so the baby can feed properly. You need to ask yourself as a student, what are things you are trying not to think about because you think they are bad? What about if they happen? If you thought about them in advance, it will not stop you from going to the project, but will help you to prepare to stop things from going. Remember that my first point was thinking about the benefit. So you already know the benefit. But when you look at what can go wrong, it helps you to weigh out the balance, to see what can happen and what you can do about it. So the second benefit of proactive thinking is that it helps you to prevent things from going wrong. Of course, there are some, even after you are doing best, can go badly. But people who are reactive, not proactive, have not thought through at all. So when they go into something, they'll just go foolishly into something going wrong. They do not do anything to stop it from going wrong. So you need to understand, thirdly, the benefit of being proactive is that after the thing has gone wrong, because you thought in advance, and those of you who are doing environmental science or health and safety are aware about it, that everything requires ERS, emergency response plan. And if you are in business, you are aware about preparing for what things can go wrong. And it's important to understand that when you go into this, you start assuming this will go wrong. What can we do? What does that mean? Because you have emergency response plan, what has gone wrong will not become worse. For example, if you have an emergency response system and you are in logistics, it means, for example, you have a medical emergency. You know that if a vehicle has an accident in Naivasha, you've already made arrangement with the hospital near Naivasha to look after your drivers. That means, as soon as you hear there has been an accident, your drivers can be taken to the hospital. And they will not be asked for a deposit, because you made arrangement in advance, isn't it? If they were going to die, because they went in the emergency unit in time, their lives will be saved. But somebody will never imagine that driver can have an accident. We will still be negotiating on the phone as the blood is pouring. Now, is that guy likely to survive? Because of inability to be proactive, to think what can go wrong. And it's important. Now, I finish measuring my time, and I realize I've only 7 minutes more to deal with it, by saying industrial psychologists or business psychologists have determined that there are three things that help you to know whether somebody whom you employ will become a CEO or not. Obviously, becoming a CEO, is he CEO of a company or a country, or is it a group of countries, or is he likely to go to the global headquarters? All on the basis of three things that industrial psychologists or business psychologists have arrived at. Number one, you can tell the direction somebody will go on the basis of his creativity, ability, we call it capacity. In fact, in the industrial world, we used to call it car, C-A-R, with the first C being a car. You can determine the speed of that car by whether this particular car is the type that can move on. So what are we actually saying? When we talk about capacity, we are discussing creative thinking. And not all of us have the creative thinking at the same level. People who have creative thinking generate a meaningful long-term vision which involves complex and uncertain systems. You need to develop, and you can be an engineer, have it. You can be a mathematician, have it. You can be a history graduate and have it. Or you can be either of them and still not have it. Because we are not discussing work. It's your way of life. Whenever you are told we are going for holiday in Mombasa by your father, do you think widely? Are you able to look at the whole process? Are you able to scan the environment and demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the strategic issues affecting that particular mission? That's what you call creative thinking. And you can tell, I was trained by Shell on these types of interviews. And I marveled after the training, when I started asking somebody, you ask somebody, assume you have the ear of the president of this country, and we make you in charge of the Ministry of Transport. What is it you have always dreamed to do, and now you have the ear of the president? He has allowed you to do it. What will you do? Somebody with first class honors tells you, I hate matatus. If I became a minister, I would work on this. And he goes on talking about matatus. What does that tell you, the guy? he doesn't have the breadth. Transport is not matatus. And once you have a car, matatu will not be the issue. He can't think about shipping. He can't think about aircraft. He cannot think about SGR. His mind is narrowed to matatus. Can you give him a job? Because you see, whatever you tell him, that's exactly what he is going to be limited to. Somebody tells a story, I don't know how true it is. Many years ago, Mr. Bata, the founder and owner of Bata Shoe Company, sent somebody to Africa to find out where there were market for shoes. The first guy to come came and looked everywhere in Africa. Wherever he went, people were walking on their legs without shoes. He went back to Canada and said, boss, there is no market in Africa. They don't need any shoes. They don't wear any shoes. After a few years, he sent somebody else to Africa, and he found that what the first guy saw was true. People are not wearing shoes. He flew back quickly to Canada and said, boss, the earlier we go to Africa, the better. The market is very wide. You see, if they have no shoes, once you start manufacturing shoes, can you see the market? These are two people. One has creative thinking. That these people don't wear shoes because they have not been made available. It's not that they enjoy nails entering into their legs. If only you made appropriately priced shoes, they will start wearing shoes. Am I communicating? That's what we mean. So in our interviews, we are not interested in your degree. Once the degree is in the pocket, we are happy now. You are an engineer, first class honors. No problem. We want to know whether whatever problems you face, you have what we call the helicopter view. Ability to look at the issue, not just the direct one. What are other issues related with this issue? That's creative thinking. And many people, even after they have first class honors, don't have it. They are none. The reason they got first class honors is because they repeat the word the teacher said. Now, it's very important to understand creative thinking has nothing to do with what you learned. Am I communicating? It's a very important thing to understand. So, we learned that if you find a guy able to think widely, able to identify the problems, and able to suggest solutions right at the interview, you know a guy who is going places. So it's a very important thing to develop creative thinking. Don't just say, I met somebody on the road, and you can't think of creative. The other day I was in Zambia training the HR Institute of Zambia. And there was a young man whom I was with. We were not in Lusaka, we were in Kariba Dam. So that's where the training was. And we spent the time. By the time he took me back to the airport, he said, there's something I have learned from you. I said, what? I said many things. But the thing he remembered is creating alternatives. Everything has alternatives. Refusing to make a decision until I have alternatives. If I see that way is the way to come out of this place, I should not assume it's the only way. There's another one here, another one here. So if I'm going outside, why must I pass through there? But when you don't have this creative thinking, you always think, somehow your mother sends you little money. And what is your thinking? She hates me. Now, why can't you create alternatives? One alternative is that she ran out of money. Another alternative is the cow died. Now, why are you assuming she doesn't like you? That lack of creative thinking will mess you up. You must always never make a decision until you produce alternatives. Management requires creation of alternatives. If you are employing somebody for something without alternatives, you call him a clerk. Managers are made because they can create alternatives. That's what we are talking about: capacity, analytical thinking, creative thinking. It's a pity we don't have enough time to deal with it. But there are several levels, so that we can tell these level 1, level 2, level 3 on the basis of that. And a global leader will have a much bigger benefit. The second thing and I'm finishing, that require is A is for achievement. A is for achievement. An achievement person, this one has creative thinking, but that doesn't tell you that he has what we are calling drive to achieve. This is a result-oriented person. He sets short-term goals for himself. He doesn't wait for the boss to be the one to set goals. And he works hard to achieve the results that fit what he has set up. He manages his own work. He is positive about change. He doesn't think that, what's wrong with this place? Things are always changing. He is aware that change is the only constant. That although you employ somebody like this, the circumstances will change. So he doesn't get bothered by change. He has drive. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to deal with it. But I want to tell you something. The key word in this area is resilience. In other words, he meets difficult circumstances and he always has a way out. In fact, one of the things we used to ask people in interviews is, what is the hardest non-academic thing you have ever faced? It has nothing to do with working. That's why in this style of interviews, we never ask you about your academic performance. That one with the lecturer is better at assessing. We're asking about your life. What are the issues? And I've discovered many people who come from hard, difficult circumstances. The mother died when they are young, the father dumped them, and they are in the university. They will tell you real challenges, and they have learned to have resilience, to be able to pull out of the dustbin. Now, if you employ someone like that, he is going to face difficult issues, but the company will be the beneficiary because he never takes a barrier to be the end. He is always able to see, that's a barrier, I agree. But this is the vision, this is where I want to go. And because this barrier is there, the alternatives, either there is another way, or I can go under the barrier, over the barrier, or over the, am I communicating? There is always a way around or a way through. Because you know where you are going. I like to give of an MBA graduate who was employed by a board. I don't know what to say which one, in case I'm talking about your uncle. And the board agreed exactly what he was going to do, and a client was going to meet. Then, when they are going to have a board meeting 2 months later, he drove to the place. The watchman at the gate asked, have you got an appointment? He said no. The watchman says, you never get in without an appointment. He tried to plead. He was never allowed. The guy gave up and waited for the next board meeting to tell the board, I was unable to reach the person. The board was mad with him. He said, a watchman stopped you from doing what you committed yourself to do. But sirs, what could you have done? He was told, just quick alternatives. Director so-and-so is the one who told you about that client. Why didn't you pick a phone and ring him and ask him to call the guy and tell the guy that, because they are friends, that our CEO is at the gate. Can you allow him in? It would have worked. Number 2, why couldn't you yourself have picked the phone and ask the CEO? The driver, the gate man, has no access to the phone. Am I communicating? Are you getting my point? If they didn't fire the guy resigned. You need to understand you have no future. When you have this lack of resilience, always looking for excuses. And I talked about it earlier. So we discovered, when you're interviewing a guy, if he's the type who doesn't tell you, what is the hardest thing you have ever done? Oh, they did not have my birthday. Now, if that is the hardest thing you have ever had, we are not going to employ you. Because obviously, you have not dealt with the real difficult issues. So it's important to understand that ability to go over issues, not to give up easily, is a critical thing that cannot be given to you by the university. It is you to develop it. Find out how many things in your personal life have you not done just because of that giving up very easily. Am I communicating? So you need to ask yourself, and those are the skills you need to know. So you can have a high capacity, but you'll never reach the top if you don't have resilience. The third one, and most important, is called relational skill. CAR. R is for relational skill. Ability to relate well with others. Some people have high capacity. Number 2, they have drive. But many of them, especially people that are gifted, that capacity is a wonderful gift. That gift makes you a little proud. And so, you also have a drive. When the two are combined, you step on anybody. Somebody told such people, please remember me on your way up. You might need me on your way down. Those kind of people that do not know how to relate to you. And I'm sure some of your classmates who are like that. The companies try to avoid them like bushfire. Because if you employ him, He will deliver in the short term and destroy your company in the long term. So you don't give them. You can identify, this is a gifted guy, first class honors, good thinker. He has tried, but he doesn't know how to work with others. Do you know it is impossible to do any project alone? None. Let me give you an example and I'm finishing with this. Maybe you decide to become a vet. I don't know if you do animal science here. You agree that because of me, I don't like working with people, I'm going to become a vet. I'll be an animal scientist. Are you aware you cannot be a vet without working with people? Set up a vet clinic in Karen where they're likely to have the cats and willingness to pay the price. Now, an Ahiti person will put a clinic next to yours. You have a PhD, put your clinic on the other side. The first two, C and A, you're okay. But this Ahiti person cannot measure up to yours. You're a scientist, but you're lacking the R. So when the lady comes bringing the cat, she wants to explain about the cat. You say, no, I'm an expert. Just leave the cat. What you are not aware is that for the cat to be sick, the owner of the cat is also sick. So although they are bringing the cat, it is them with the problems. So when you are unable to understand, you will just dismiss her. Please leave the cat. When they come back for their cat, you say, what was wrong with my cat? The cat is jumping, it has been treated, it's okay. But the lady wants to know. They say, no, the cat is okay. It's too complex for you to understand. Pay at the door. She will pay at the door and never come back. I'm just saying, people in Karen are funding. How can they be going to an Ahiti, not even to from a certificate level, when I have a PhD, and they're not coming to me? They will never come to you. Because you don't know how to relate with the one with the check. Cats have no checks. Am I communicating? It will be important. So you need to understand relationship. It doesn't matter how many degrees you get. Until you know how to work with others, you will always be a junior. Nobody can promote you to management or to the board if you don't know how to work with others. You need to know how to manage your bosses, how to manage your juniors, how to manage your colleagues. And that is when they feel appreciated. I don't have enough time. Each one of those things, the 5 things I've mentioned, are all critical requirements for us to discuss. But I hope by mentioning them, that you start understanding. You need to think about your own life. And start understanding you must do well in your class. Please get a first class honors. But you know you require something beyond that. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Oh my